So thank you everybody and welcome to our webinar. Today we'll have two speakers, two very knowledgeable, one of the most knowledgeable people in Germany in Telecom and FTTH. So Michael Scholz and Ulrich Kramer. So thank you both for coming. And yeah, let me introduce please a bit Outvise and then I hand over to you both. So first, a bit about Outvise. We are one of the largest marketplaces specialized in telecom. We have more than 30,000 experts. We work in more than 40 countries, especially in countries like Germany, UK, Middle East, Africa, UK, Spain. We work for telcos such as Vodafone, such as O2, Telefonica. So, and today we are going to talk about fiber. Fiber is one of the hottest topics today in the industry, and we have a lot of new projects regarding FTTH. So, and there are a lot of players from infrastructure providers to investment funds, infrastructure funds, such as, for example, Equite or and also some consulting, some vendors around. So a lot of interest in this new market, and yeah, I'm very pleased to introduce Michael Scholz. Michael is ex-Telekom, ex-CFO, has worked in several countries in telecom across Europe, especially from the finance and from the business point of view, and is I think one of the most knowledgeable people in FTTH in Germany, in Deutschland today. So hi, Michael.
Hello, thank you for inviting.
Yeah, and then Ulrich Kramer. Ulrich has worked for, especially in the vendor side, for American and Israeli companies. Very knowledgeable also in FTTH, now based in Sweden, but working especially to help foreign companies, foreign vendors to get into the German market. So thank you, Ulrich, for joining us.
Hello.
So I will hand over the webinar to you both. So let's understand what's going on in that exciting market today as Germany with plenty of investments. Yeah, Michael, all yours.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for inviting us to give a brief overview over the topic. And we will talk about Germany and the situation in the German fiber market. And let's start, as always, with a small kind of statistic and having a look what is the situation in Germany compared to many other countries. Germany is far in the last third of any development in terms of rollout and fiber optic availability. And you see the EU as well as the OECD is far ahead of Germany, where we would expect Germany to be at least in that range. And it's even not that, but it's also that the pickup rate by the customers is pretty low, that only a third of fiber optic connections is booked by the customers. And if you have a deeper look on that, it's not even on the gigabit, but it's only, let's say, 200 to 400 Mbits, which is booked for the customer from the customers. So in this webinar, we will talk about the current situation, the market demands and its offerings. We will strive shortly on the public and private funding rollout options we have in the market, and which will be for the next 3 to 5 years on the plate. We will explain how Uli and I onboarded construction companies into the market, because there is select. We will comment on that later in this. And we will also explain how to set up a team to deploy a network which needs a little bit more innovative approaches than we had in the past. So the question is Germany struggling a lot with the international requirements? We say yes and no. Why do we face the situation? Germany is a country which traditionally has a lot of underground infrastructure compared to other countries which are far ahead in terms of rollout. So a rollout in Germany is pretty expensive, and except some rare places where we use other ways of combining the network and connecting the customer, where we have aerial deployments or maybe some microwave or ways of coverage. But nearly 100% is underground infrastructure, which is, if you have to do it new, deployment cost of about 70,000 euro per kilometer, while 80 to 90% of this is civil works. And so it is a huge burden for the operators or also the financing side. The question is, why don't we do it instead of that? Given the fact that Germany has a long and good copper network, VDSL technology offers fast services for most of customers and many of the customers. So we know the limits of the technology, and in the last 1.5 years under the COVID, we saw the limits of the technology. So there is a new push to go for other technologies on broadband, which practically is fiber optics. But in the past, the demand from the customers, what we saw in the statistics, only 1/3 of pickup rate. It was on a pretty high level of customers being okay with the situation. Parallel to that, at least West Germany owns a coax cable network which can offer in the DOCSIS technology up to a gigabit. So also there, from the customer side, rollout of fiber optic was not so much under demand. So from that point of view, the business cases for fiber optics do not look so nice. Anyhow, the digital agenda, which was by the federal government in the year 2017, focused on fiber optic technology and focused on fiber optic technology. Given that digital agenda is a provision for household enterprise. The digital agenda, which is by the federal government for the year 2025, was put on a technology neutral approach, and an upgrade VDSL and DOCSIS was fine at that point in time. Anyhow, to reach the target of the agenda, we have to build 35 million new households and to put at least 12 billion euro public money into into the project. To save money, there is a discussion about the micro-invasive deployment methods, and to give an introduction to that, I pass over to Uli to give some more insight on that.
Yeah, thank you, Michael, and also a warm welcome from the far north. Yeah, as Michael mentioned, in 2017, with the last election of Mrs. Merkel, they approached what they called digital agenda, and was putting out a lot of governmental money, which resulted in a big boom on infrastructure expansion, but not only in broadband, in all kinds of other infrastructure activities all over Germany, like highways, channels, airports, as you know. That was a kind of a huge surge in growth in Germany. Unfortunately, broadband was one of the smallest parts, so all the big infrastructure companies was focusing on other markets than broadband. Also, the start was not really famous. There was a bit slow and not very courageous funding policy, so they changed in 1 year 3 times what we call the bid level to make more people available for broadband funding. So at the end of the day, there was a dramatic demand for people and material, and associated with drastically rising costs and a shortage of products that is still there because Corona was even affecting this more and more. So in some areas we have a shortage of cabinets and cables, which will be now fixed out. In order, excuse me, in order to compensate the shortage, several efforts was from the big operator was made in parallel, and especially the great operators here in Germany, and we have 4 of them, are starting a recruiting process overseas for workforces, and was also targeting into a new financial investment and was looking for it. The best examples here in this is Telefonica with the Allianz as a financing partner, and maybe you have read the news a couple of days ago, Deutsche Telekom has founded together with the Australian pension fund IFM new money into the market, so that is just growing on. Based on this micro-invasive deployment, which everybody wants to do, that's a little bit a political issue here, because you have to know most of the, or at the end of the day, the final decision to open up the ground is made by the public municipalities, what we call the Gemeinde. And most of them are not pretty encouraged to just go with this. They are still thinking the classical method with an excavator and digging a hole is the best way, because the micro trenching is something that we have to convince more and more people into the market. There are areas that are looking for it, and we have very good examples, but let's say the majority of the communities is a bit skeptical about it. Mike.
Good. So now let's try to understand how we can fund this huge attempt for the fiber optic rollout. We have 2 ways of funding, the private funding and the public funding. We already left some words on the public funding, which is a 12 billion from the Federal Republic, and also on top of that from money from the federal states. But what Uli already said is large operators fund on their balance sheets, which means they need to have a substantial and a good working business case. We see more and more coming up cooperations between locally strong infrastructure providers like Stadtwerke and large operators to share the burdens of the rollout. But it's not only on the money, but it's also on the right of ways, and to raise the synergies and to raise also the competences and synergies on the competences in the local market, which is maybe more with the local heroes rather than with the big operators. And on the other hand, together they can lift up a lot of financial strengths. The smaller operators will go to less attractive regions. What is attractive for them? It's a longer investment horizon. There is less yield on it, but it is attractive for them to go there because the customers will stay very long with them, because the alternative for the customers and the alternative to choice other operators is, of course, much smaller than you have in the big cities and in the metropolitan areas. The public funding is something which is promoted since many years on very different levels. It's basically the federal state level and also the state level. The things work together. It is very complicated to understand each and every project, because There is overlapping rules. It's several programs depending on the point in time when they were started, depending on the funding, where you started it, with which public organization you started the funding, and which is the supporting part. You have different responsibilities for different parts of the project. And of course, as we talk about administration, in the end of the day, the application processes are lengthy, complicated, and it's a lot of throw back and forth before you have the final approval to start the building and then to cash in the subsidies. It's very small scale regulations on the deployment methods, on the material concepts. And it is very well advised to have somebody there to help through the municipalities or the one applying for the subsidies to work through all this in the beginning very lengthy and complicated paperwork. The models are two models available according to the law. The one thing is the straightforward, what we call Betreiber model, an operator model, where an operator, which must be public owned, so it can be a Stadtwerke or a municipality directly, and they ask for the funding and then operate the network or the part of the network which is subsidized on their own. The other way is that a public institution finds an operator who needs the money because the business case is not covered by the revenues from the customers, and then to cash in the money, the present value of the financing gap into the operator directly, which we call the Deckungslücken model. This is a one-time payment done by the federal state into the operator, and thereafter the operator operates like every operator would operate in the market. So the funds are available and still not fully carved out, but as I said before, it needs to be applied for, and it is a lengthy way to go it. And again, to stress on that, the public funding and the optimization of the public funding needs experienced handling.
So we come now to the poll.
Right, we have a poll now.
Yeah. So we can continue. Huh? We have.
Yeah, I think it's so. Uli, it's on mute. It's an interesting but difficult environment.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the challenge because it's not a real challenge, but it's a challenge. And Michael mentioned out is that we have, I lost a bit the overview because there are more than 100 big and smaller mid-sized operators are currently investing money in the German broadband infrastructure. So basically, it's important that you understand that the German market is characterized by small and mid-sized German companies, as I mentioned earlier, because the big ones are concentrating on the larger infrastructure, which will be invested as well. And basically also on the history that most of these small and mid-sized companies come from a technical background. They have done electrical cables or from the gas pipeline industry. So they are specialized on these kind of infrastructure construction areas. But the big civil engineering companies was also, meanwhile moving more and more into this market and also find some kind of partners in other countries. So they are more and more coming into the German market, which is quite interesting to see. So in 2017, nobody wants to enter it. Now more and more companies calling us and say, hey, how can we onboard into the German market? Important is here that you have the knowledge of the technical and legal rules here in Germany, which is a bit tricky. The bureaucracy is not easy, and just coming, for example, from Scandinavia, where everything is quite civilized, or from France or from Italy, there is lots and lots of different rules, and you have to know that at the end of the day, the final decision, if you can just dig somewhere, the community has to make. So there's a lot of bureaucracy, and this smooth onboarding, on-passing, this is something that we have done over the last 4 years already, that that the companies that entering the German market has a nice and smooth access. Important is that you also understand that the allocation and laws are different, and everything is in German language. So an essential basic knowledge in German is quite obvious here. The process is quite easy. First of all, of course, the companies that wants to enter the German market has to have the general willingness to work in German, which is quite nice. But the willingness accept some changes to learn here in Germany, because started from the legal basis down to the technical rules, everything is quite written down. For example, the Deutsche Telekom has something they call ZTV, which is a Bible, a technical Bible for them. So everything is written here, unfortunately only in German. But if you just read it through, it's quite easy to understand how to work on it. Important as well is to obtain comprehensive information on special requirements. That means the local difference between north, south, east, and west is sometimes for political reasons, sometimes for geographical reasons, quite different. So there is no Blaupause you can put all over Germany and say, okay, if I've done it in Flensburg, it's the same like in Mittenwald. So that's something you need to understand, that we have these, due to the federal system in Germany, there's a lot of different things you need to understand. What is also important is that we will help you in the future to developing a profile on the target market, also on target customers that you like to address, and also the regions, and work out necessary preparatory measures to tailor-made you into the German market, and recommend a couple of trainings before you just enter into that operator business here. That makes a lot of things easier. It's like a motivated tour. Qualifying and training your team is also essential. And our target is, of course, then to make sure that you become a 5-star vendor. 5-star is a measurement tool of Deutsche Telekom, for example. And if you are a 5-star vendor, that is the allowance to print your own money, more or less. That makes you think. Going to the German market in parallel, you should developing a local workforce, or try to find relationships, which is something we can help you out. Maybe you have to just take a look on specialized subcontractors, especially for specific construction parts like horizontal drilling, asphalt construction, or pressure management, because you need to make a pressure management if you dig in roads. And also important is construction and site security, because there are very, very strict rules when you open up roads or going into houses, how that has to be secured. One other thing is, maybe you can buy some fully fledged service company. That is what lots of companies that we know have done in the past, but meanwhile it becomes a bit more difficult. And of course, due to the need in the market, those get a bit more expensive. That is something you have to face as well. The time is right. The market is still there. We can encourage you to enter the German market. We still have a lot of opportunities that phases to be done. Thank you.
Okay, so let's strive on how to set up a team that can face the market, and where to get the people from, and where the expertise can be found, and how to keep the expertise. So the labor market in Germany for construction and deployment personnel on all levels, from the helper to the engineer, is pretty much carved out. So finding it's a good advice to keep them in your company and to keep the people happy. And the start and looking for good people is when you come to the German market is one thing you should have, as Uli already mentioned in some minutes before, is very important to start it together with the program and the project to face new customers, or to target for particular operators. And what is to be said about the team is that there is different levels of needs, and there's a lot of things outsourced from the operators, in particular from the big operators who in the past did an end-to-end in-house. They more and more source out particular services, going to turnkey or taking particular knowledge and particular expertise outside of their organization. So it is something which is a managerial task, no longer in the line organization, but in a kind of a project organization, to set up a team that is workable, that is trustful, working together, and is not necessarily under one, but under many umbrellas. And this team, Uli, about the end-to-end service to be.
Yeah, what I like to mention out is that, especially when you work for the smaller operators on the countryside, but also for the big ones as well, is you have to have native or German-speaking personnel on site. That is very essential, because from time to time you have customer contacts, or you have to contact local municipality offices. And especially when you're starting working in the east part of Germany, but also in other parts, it's pretty rare that the knowledge of English is given. So that is my experience I have here faced on the German market. So herefore, that is something that Outvise and we will help you to just find the right persons to onboard, that you make sure that the language barrier is not a barrier and helps you out, because that could be some issue. Think about when you just go into a small municipality and there are 50-year-old men that have never spoken English in his life. To understand how he is working and to give you the permission is quite essential. You can stop a lot of things, but these are details which is our job to support you in these cases, and make sure that the onboarding is very smooth here. So, but you can see the market is there, and still people are available, and more people are coming from other, we call it Seiteneinsteiger, into that broadband developing market. And I think it's a good approach for the next 4 to 5 years to start now. Thank you.
So we're more or less coming to an end. And to give you a summary about that, what we tried to work out, also it's a very broad field to discuss, and each of the topics can fill an evening of presentation. But we worked on the German broadband infrastructure lagging behind and being upgraded in the next year. So this is the title of the webinar, what is 22 and beyond, and where is the need to do something in the network, and how to meet the international benchmarks and to lift up Germany at least to its peers, which is the industrial states, and how that can be done with the private and the public funding, on which we worked out some sentences. Also, that is also a broad field to discuss in detail. And in particular, Uli explained how the German scattered market is not easy to enter when you come from outside and first time come to this market, understanding the role plays of the different market participants. On the funding, we left some words. It's the public, it's the private funding, and the available funds, and the mixture of both can be very helpful for the operators, but also for the public institution coming to the market. So coming to the German broadband market, meaning from the outside, there is need of experienced guidance. There is a need of people helping the companies, consulting on long term, and giving the guidance, and also opening the doors in the one or other operator, construction or administrational office. And the setting up of the successful team means the in-depth knowledge about available resources, which we together can work out what is needed in the companies, what is the company's own expertise already existing, and what is something which has to be built up or purchased from the one or other source.
Very good. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Ulrich. Very interesting. All what you explained. Let's move to the Q&A, and we have a first question for one participant, and they were asking if it's possible to accumulate the band and the regional grants. I don't know if you can accumulate both grants.
In general spoken, but this is more Michael's part. In general spoken, yes. Depends on the area and what kind of budget they have currently announced. I know this from Mecklenburg-Vorpommern. There, the operators accumulate money from the German government and money from the state of Mecklenburg-Vorpommern. So in general, it's yes, but it always depends on the local area.
Okay, good. We have another question. Can you explain more details? Subsidized projects concerning the material concept, which is required in the subsidized project? Can you explain? I don't know if...
the material concept is something that is given by the Bund. I can spread around. We have meanwhile version number 6, when I'm correctly informed. But this is only when you just do the subsidized projects. You find a list, what is included, how much fibers you have to build, how much fibers you have to bring to the home. This is a very detailed document, which if you have some interest to know that, I can spread this document out. Yeah.
Okay, good.
And you also can find it on the, I think you can find this, no, you find this on the Ministry of Traffic and Digitalization. Under the rules of broadband, there you find this, and also under the homepage of a company called Telecom, which are privileged to consult subsidized projects. There you find the material concept as well.
Okay, thank you. Another question: would you have a database, a list of fiber construction companies in Germany?
In general, yes, but it's yeah. We have a list of fiber construction companies, which is, let's say, from the Deutsche Telekom down to the city of Pasewalk. There you can find a lot of companies. Yeah.
So whoever is interested, let us drop an email and then we'll talk.
Yeah. We have a list of companies.
Okay. Can private and public funding be combined?
Yeah, yes.
Something we have done already. The question was already.
Okay. Very good. Let me see if there is any other one. Okay. Is it possible to detail more about the FTTH rules and procedures that must be applied to the German operators? This is a very general question, right?
Yeah.
Very general question. There's many rules to be applied. So
just to give an example, the ZTV, which is the digging rules and the rules for in-house cabling, is roughly 900 pages. Yes, we can tell you.
Not bad. Another question: how to penetrate the German market when we are not referenced in any company or public authority and being a manufacturer from another European country? Any tips?
Depends on what kind of industry you are. I know there's a lot of infrastructure companies from Scandinavia, for example, and from France and Italy that like to enter the German market, depending on what kind of products they want to bring or what kind of service they want to bring. And then we can take a detailed look how to enter the market. Yeah, of course, we can do this.
Is it possible, for example, for in a passive component, right? Fibers and
due to the let's say in fiber cable, it's very, very, very attractive here because there is a huge need, and all the fiber cable manufacturers from Finland down to China are still under heavy production currently because the need is huge. The same as well for cabinets, APLs, ducts. So there is a need. Of course, you have to understand how these products has to be entered to the market. I have done this with a couple of companies. Some of them was successful, some of them denied because the change of the product line was too expensive. Okay. This is something you have to, it's a case-to-case study.
Yeah, more questions. Can you confirm that the German network owners typically demand a higher level of documentation that other European companies?
Yeah, I can confirm. Definitely. We are Germany. Germans love paper.
Paper country.
Yeah.
Okay, another question. Can you confirm that German network effectively demand a high... Oh, well, that's the same. Okay, 1 second. Yeah, that was the same. Yeah. Is the material concept legally binding or being accepted as a provider for an operator? For example, Deutsche Telekom would be enough to sell the products or work on the market?
If you are in the funding business, yes. If you are not in the funding business, you can discuss with your customer what kind of products they like to have. But most operators I know applying the material concept from the ministry.
Okay, another question. Language seems to be an entrance barrier when dealing with public authorities, permits. Even is this true? Are the permit solicitation digitalized? Can we use digital channels for that?
Can you repeat? I didn't understand the question.
It says that the language seems to be a barrier, and if the permits can be asked via digital, if you can digitally make the solicitation of the
no, I know this from Scandinavia, and the answer here is no, because we're just building the digitalization here. In Scandinavia, there is one big organization called Wegwerket, where you can apply for opening up roads plus the community. In Germany, you have to go there because there's a lot of things you can't do on site or online. You have to fill out paper documents, and therefore you need to understand these paper documents because all of them are in German.
Yeah. Good. When do you think Telecom Cooper? When do you think Telecom Cooper will be switched off?
In 100 years.
As a lever to migrate households.
Long time ahead.
Yeah, in 100 years.
100 years.
100 years.
Okay, so that will take a while.
I see another question. Any specific geographic area in Germany which is more active in fiber deployment? No. It's going all over now in parallel. Some areas are a bit slower due to regional and geographical issues. Others goes faster, but in general, you can't say. My experience is we have companies from the north that concentrate on the north, and we have companies from the south and southeast. They are concentrating on the southeast to bring the people home. So there is no cherry picking in regions. Okay.
Another question, is the rollout driven by operators or by municipalities?
Both. In general, the operator, but the municipalities or the communication between operator and municipality is very important, because you don't get digging permissions without talking to the municipalities. So the rollout is depending on both.
Good. Well, there's somebody who is again asking about the material concept. Thank you so much. Just to confirm my understanding on this matter, material concept is required only when there is a public funding. Yes. Which means that it's private fundings. The operators can work with every product and methods, right?
Yeah, be a little bit more precise. When we talk about material concept in this context, we talk about the material concept of the law. But of course, the operators have their material concepts as well. So you will not come with your own things just straight to the market.
Yeah.
So there's always a material concept behind.
Okay, general questions. Are utilities like E.ON bringing a positive and visible change to the German situation with regards to FTTH rollout? I'm not sure exactly what.
Yeah, because there's popping up some which I can't read.
If utilities companies like electricity companies.
Yeah, that's historically based, because most of the power utility companies like E.ON or EDIS had their cables already in the ground, and therefore it was historically based that they have started fiber as well. Yes, they bring value to the market. And that is also the reason why what we call Stadtwerke, which was the local power utility companies, are, let's say, 90% of all these operators based on these power utility companies that have existing infrastructure already in place.
Yeah, good. Question, important question. When do you think consolidate of FTTH players will start, and why? So now we have this frenzy of several joint ventures popping up around Germany. When do you think that will come to an end and will start to consolidate?
There will be in my opinion, there will be a consolidation in the market in let's say a period of time, and it's hard to predict what this is, but I think the first consolidations in the market will happen with the duration of the financings, and then there might be takeovers or consolidation between smaller operators due to the fact that there's a refinancing to be made. So I think when you see the financing timelines, most probably in the course of these timelines, there will be also consolidation, whether it will be takeovers by the bigger operators or mergers between the smallers. But obviously, this very scattered market, in my very personal opinion, will not last over the next 15 years.
Okay, but you think that in 2 to 3 years, or it's more a matter of 5 to 7?
I would say in the due time of the financing, so more to talk about the 5 to 7 years. My very personal opinion.
Okay.
There's another question from Jean-Mathieu, bouncing the question about entering the German market. There are, as I said, a cabinet and shelter manufacturer. Yeah, the time is right to entering the German market. We can compare your products with the products that are currently established on the German market. Like when you just cabinet supply, you know, maybe Langmatz and Sichert, which are number 1 and number 2 on the German market. And if you are similar to that market entry would be very doable. And then there's another from François Renaud. operators will use GPON or B2B, or it depends on the deployment areas. Exactly that what it is. Some using GPON, others doing B2B. That is something the operator decides.
Good. More questions. Are German next generation funds focusing on fiber? On fiber deployments? The next generation funds?
You mean public funds?
Yeah, I guess that these are the EU funds, right?
Yeah, this is EU funds, public funds, but also the permission for building, except for repairs, will all be on fiber optic, whether it's GPON or B2B, but the basic must be fiber. So all funds in the result, all funds will be allocated to fiber optics.
Good, good.
Another question which I see here, do the operators share the territory? No, everybody builds everywhere where they think it's economically wise. There is no, you go to east, we take the west. There is no plan to do this given by the government. Everybody has the same right to build. And who is faster and who is earlier in the ground has the advantage.
Mm-hmm.
Kim Kallestrup, I think he is a gentleman from Denmark. Hey. Is the design in Germany standardized or different from each network owner? There is a kind of a standard of how you build a network and design it, but this is something that goes very into details we should discuss offline.
Good. I think that's it, right?
I think so.
Amazing. Thank you very much, both. I think it's been very, very interesting, this webinar. There's a lot of interest for companies to invest, to deploy in Germany. Complex country, very scattered, right?
Yeah.
I think that when the Romans tried to conquer Germany, they said that they didn't find any city where to start, right? That everything
that was good for us.
And that's good for you. So I guess that now you have to pay that. So thank you very much for both of you. Very interesting. Thank you very much, Michael. Thank you very much, Ulrich. And let's keep in touch.
For the opportunity.
Have a nice evening. Go well. Tschüss.
And if anyone is interested, just drop us an email and we'll put you in contact with our experts. Thank you very much and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.